If you're a dungeon master, you've got it pretty good when it comes to instruction and inspirational resources. There are YouTube channels, blogs, and whole podcasts dedicated to how to prep an adventure, how to run a session, and how to build a campaign. That's one of the things I strive to help with on this channel. The official rulebooks give you entire chapters, walking you through it step by step, with the 2024 version of 5e from WotC doing an especially good job of it. But if you're a player, what's available to help you not only learn how to play, but how to play well? Go look and you'll find it's thin, at least from WotC. I think that's a real problem that leaves us dungeon tubers on the hook to fill in the gap. In this video, I'm going to talk about why this disparity between DM resources and player resources exists, and I'll share two approaches I've found that actually help newbie players get up to speed a bit quicker. Before I begin, go ahead and click the like button if you find content like this helpful, and consider subscribing to the channel. I put out new videos on D&D every week. When I first started playing D&D back in 1980, there was no YouTube or World Wide Web. You and your friends would buy the books or basic set, sit down and figure it out together. If you were lucky, you found an existing group or a DM who maybe had 3 sessions more experience than you did. That was the entire learning process. It was essentially trial and error, like getting a bookshelf from IKEA without any instructions for how to assemble it. There was no player education back then. There was barely any DM education either, other than a little bit in the basic set's rulebook. Everybody was essentially inventing the practice as they went. Here's what's strange when you look at the situation today. DMs have an almost endless well of instruction available to them, while players get a bunch of here's how to do it stuff online and on YouTube, but it seems to be far less coherent and a bit more specialized based on which edition it is, or even down to the particular preferences and opinions of the content creator themselves. Admittedly, learning how to play 5th edition is a bit different than learning how to play Shadow Dark RPG or Old School Essentials, but the fundamentals are the same. What I'm talking about is not learning the syntax or the specific rules of one edition or another. I'm talking about solid instructional materials that describe how to be a genuinely good player. The reason why this tutorial gap exists for players is because the official WotC rules books left a hole that still exists. Back in 2016, when I started playing 5e, the first thing I did was buy the 3 core rulebooks and read them cover to cover. Keep in mind that at this point, I'd been playing D&D for over 3 decades, so after I read the books, I went down to the local game shop at open table night, thinking I'd be able to slot into a group and play as well as the best of them. I realized pretty quickly that despite having the fundamentals down about how to play D&D, things had changed enough that I still needed to brush up a bit. I managed to understand the latest rules and got up to speed at an adequate pace, but that's because I learned it the old-fashioned way. I sat down with a DM and a group of players who were already familiar with the game, and they walked me through it as we went. It was by example. It's my view that this remains the best way to learn, but it still comes with the caveat that you're going to learn a style of play that mirrors that particular group. That's not a bad thing if you've never played at someone else's table. Today, my primary D&D experience is running the teens program at my local public library. I'm one of 2 DMs running bi-weekly games. About 98% of the kids who show up have never played the game before. That means my session 0 usually eats the entire 2-hour block. I'm not just rolling up characters with them. I'm teaching them in real time how to actually play the game. I'm explaining what a DC check means, how armor class works, and what initiative means. We even go over table etiquette and social expectations that many of us take for granted. Even after all that, I'm still teaching them as we go, session after session. This is fine, and it's what I think is the best way to learn how to play the game. However, if the official player's handbook actually did its job, I wouldn't need to go through an entire 2-hour session just getting the players to a point where they can actually play the game at an adequate level. What complicates my situation even more is we don't start with a fresh group all beginning at the same time. We have an established group where one player drops out for whatever reason and a new kid takes their place. The other kids have some experience but are still learning the ropes, so I have to integrate the newbie while the actual game is going on. If the new players that show up to the existing group already had some decent training beforehand, my job would be a lot easier. The fundamentals of playing D&D are fairly simple and only take a minute to explain. I can boil it down to 3 steps. The DM tells you what you see, you tell the DM what you do, and then the DM tells you what happens. Rinse and repeat. Done. You're now playing D&D. But wait, there's more. Playing it well is a whole nother matter. That can take months or even years. And what counts as good play is genuinely subjective. What one table finds fun and engaging, another table might find slow or pointless. So this isn't as simple as, here's the one correct way to play, because there isn't one. That's why there are so many different videos on YouTube about how to play D&D, yet none of them coherently say the same thing. This is why it's a bigger challenge to learn how to play D&D well than most people realize. This brings me to the actual point of this video. In my view, the official D&D rulebooks do not adequately prepare new players to become effective and confident at the table. It's not because it's impossible to teach, but because for whatever reason, WotC never really tried. And yes, there's a mountain of content online trying to fill that space, but most of it comes with a catch. It's somebody's personal brand of how to play D&D, or they say this edition is the right one, or this play style is the best way to do it. A new player watching all that isn't getting neutral instruction. They're getting someone's opinion dressed up as some kind of implied best practice. If you've played D&D before, how did you learn? Did you cut your teeth watching actual gameplay videos? Did you read someone's online tutorial? Or are you old school and learned by sitting down at a table with more experienced players that showed you the ropes? Share in the comments the way you learned how to play D&D and include whether you think that method was effective or not. So what actually works? I can tell you what's worked for me, both as that brand new player back in 1980 and as the guy teaching a constantly rotating group of teenagers who are literally experiencing the game for the very first time. First, I have found that reading a transcript of an actual play session is very useful. It's a no-pressure way to get exposed to the game. It's not complete, but it really helps. The old basic set rulebook had 2 of these transcripts, and they were fantastic. A new player could sit with it and just absorb the rhythm of the game before ever picking up their dice. When I made my World War II spycraft and espionage roleplay game, Ashes of Isar, I made sure to include a sample play transcript in the rulebook to help the reader get up to speed as quickly as possible. So why not just watch an actual game session on YouTube? That can absolutely work, but something subtle goes on when you do it that way. You're getting exposed to the mechanics of the game, but it's being conveyed in a way that implies this is the social way to play. I've noticed that newbie players who show up to the library's games after watching actual games online come in with an expectation for how the game will feel or how everyone will behave, but for some reason they have very little understanding of the mechanics and zero understanding for how to actually play well. It's a very odd phenomenon that I haven't been able to figure out. In fact, I had one teen player show up super excited about getting into D&D because he'd seen it on Stranger Things. He thought it would go exactly like he saw in the show, and in fact, told me Eddie was the greatest DM that ever lived. No pressure. But what was weird was when he realized that our D&D game wasn't connected to the game he saw in the show. He thought all D&D games were the same plot and same storyline and same events. Second, running a short demo session where we have a sample combat encounter is a very helpful part of an expanded Session 0. Combat is usually the most overwhelming and complicated part of the game for a brand new player, so walking through a sample combat together with low stakes before getting into the real deal does more good than any amount of explaining the rules verbally. With new players being slotted into an existing group, this is a bit more challenging to accomplish, but I try to devote at least 10 to 15 minutes of sample play where damage and death don't count, with the existing players participating before we dive in for real. I once tried writing up a tutorial and giving it out as a handout to the kiddos, but to them it felt like homework and it wasn't helpful at all. Maybe some adults would find handouts and cheat sheets useful, but in my experience, that has only helped summarize character creation options in 5e. Both written transcripts of gameplay and demo play within an expanded Session 0 have worked for me. That doesn't mean they're the only way to do it, however. Every table is different and every group of players is different. But if you're a DM bringing in new players and you're waiting for the rulebook to do that teaching for you, you're going to be waiting a long time. If you're a player brand new to the game, the player's handbook will cover how to create a character well enough, but don't expect it to do a complete job teaching you how to play. If you're a DM and have a cool way to bring new players up to speed at your table, share your method in the comments. I'd love to hear what has worked for you. As always, have fun, stay cool, and keep your dice rolling.